So Layla's made us this empty settings activity. Why don't we make one of those fancy preference fragments we've been talking about and populate it with some preferences defined in an XML file? We'll be using the version 7 support library of the preference fragments for backwards compatibility to API level 9. Because of that, in the Gradle file, you'll need to add the library dependency for version 7 preferences support. Okay, I've added it now, and I'm going to sync. And once that's done, let's create a new class and call it settings fragment. This class will extend from the preference fragment compat. Make sure you are using compat and that it's from the version 7 library. Also notice the red error problem because we've extended this class. So to solve this, we can simply implement all the methods in it, which is just the one on create preferences. Now that we have this fragment, let's make an XML preference file, which will define what goes inside this fragment. Start by creating a new folder under the res directory and call it XML. And this is where our preferences XML file will live. Once you've done that, you can create a new XML resource file and call it pref visualizer. Any preference XML's outer tag is always a preference screen tag. Within that tag, you can nest other preferences tags of different types. You can even nest other preference screen tags if you want. This will create a nested hierarchy of preferences. What do I mean by nested hierarchy of preferences? Well, here I'm in the phone settings screen, and if I click on the display, it would actually show me another settings screen. But for our visualizer app, we only have a handful of preferences, so we will be using only this one preference screen tag. I'm going to start by adding a preference tag for a checkbox. This checkbox will ultimately determine whether or not to show the BAS circle. Inside that checkbox preference tag, I'll define 5 attributes. The default value, which is true, which means show the BAS circle by default. The key, just called it show BAS. And then the title is show BAS. I'll also provide information about the preference summary. A preference summary simply tells what the user should expect when they check or uncheck an option. So for that, I've set the summary on to say shown and summary off to say hidden. Now that we have the XML, let's move back to the settings fragment file. In the onCreate method, you'll call the addPreferenceFromResource method, passing in your XML file. This will generate a preference screen from that file. Now that we have had all that sorted out, let's add this preference fragment to our activity. To do that, I'm just going to go to the activity settings layout and replace this entire relative layout tag with a fragment tag, and then point that fragment tag to the settings fragment we just created. So we're almost done, just one more quick change we need to do. Because we're using a preference fragments compat library, we need to add a theme to the styles.xml. So browse to the values folder and then open up the styles.xml and add a theme. If you don't add this preference theme and you try to go to the settings screen, your app will crash. And when you check your error log, it will tell you must specify a preference theme. Okay, enough talk now. Let's run this code and see if it actually works. Once you launch the app, you can go to the settings screen and we get to see our new checkbox created here. And you can tell that the summary changes when you check or uncheck it. Sweet.